For decades, the public believed they knew the absolute truth behind the changing appearance of the world's greatest entertainer. The dominant narrative across global media suggested a deliberate choice, a conscious effort to erase his heritage and transform into someone else entirely. However, a deeper look into the medical archives and recent scientific consensus reveals a much more complex and tragic reality. The rumors started small in the early 80s, as subtle changes began to alter the familiar face of the young superstar. Tabloids quickly seized on the transformation, spinning wild theories about experimental treatments and a deep-seated rejection of his own identity. For years, these sensational stories drowned out the quiet explanations offered by those closest to the singer. People who worked closely with him behind the scenes began noticing unusual patches of pale skin appearing on his hands and arms during rehearsals. Makeup artists spent hours trying to blend his natural complexion with these rapidly spreading zones of depigmentation. These eyewitness accounts from his inner circle provide the first crucial layer of evidence that something entirely beyond his control was happening. As the years went on, specialized dermatologists who treated him began to speak out about the specific condition altering his body. They confirmed that he was battling an aggressive case of vitiligo, a condition where the body's immune system mistakenly attacks its own pigment-producing cells. This professional medical testimony shifted the conversation from a vanity-driven choice to a grueling, unpredictable physical struggle. The ultimate confirmation came from official medical documentation that put an end to decades of intense public speculation. The formal autopsy report, a public record scrutinized by independent experts worldwide, explicitly confirmed the presence of widespread vitiligo across his body. This irrefutable scientific proof completely discredited the long-standing tabloid myths that had dominated public perception for a generation. To truly understand this journey, one must look back at a childhood spent entirely under the harsh glare of the public spotlight. Growing up as a child prodigy meant his formative years were defined by immense pressure, grueling performance schedules, and a lack of privacy. The constant emotional stress of this environment likely exacerbated his underlying physical vulnerabilities from a very early age. His family environment was a pressure cooker of high expectations and intense scrutiny where vulnerability was rarely permitted. From his earliest days on stage, he was taught that performance and perfection were the only ways to secure affection and safety. This intense psychological burden created a deep sense of isolation that would follow him into adulthood. The physical transformation was not just a medical challenge, but a deeply isolating experience for a man whose face was recognized in every corner of the earth. Imagine watching your own reflection change unpredictably while millions of people analyze and judge every single adjustment. The psychological toll of hiding such a condition under a magnifying glass is almost impossible to fully comprehend. This story extends far beyond the struggles of a single iconic entertainer and touches on deeper societal conversations about identity and perception. It highlights how quickly a collective audience will believe a scandalous lie over a complex, uncomfortable truth. The intense public reaction reflects our own biases and our willingness to consume entertainment at the expense of human empathy. The intersection of celebrity culture and medical privacy became a defining battleground during this period of cultural history. Society often treats public figures as public property, demanding total access to their private lives while stripping away their right to basic human dignity. This case serves as a stark reminder of the boundary line that should exist between public entertainment and private suffering. Science itself has evolved significantly since the height of the media frenzy surrounding his changing appearance. Modern dermatology now possesses a much deeper understanding of autoimmune disorders and how genetic predispositions interact with environmental stress. Today, researchers openly acknowledge that early media coverage of his condition was deeply flawed and scientifically inaccurate. A definitive turning point in public understanding occurred when leading medical journals published comprehensive reviews of how the media mischaracterizes visible skin conditions. These authoritative studies cited his specific case as a prime example of systemic public misunderstanding and journalistic failure. This high-level scientific consensus finally vindicated a man who had spent his life defending his own biology to a skeptical world. The realization that the world got it so incredibly wrong forces a collective re-examination of how we treat those in the spotlight. It reminds us that behind the massive stadiums, the broken records, and the flashing cameras, there was simply a human being dealing with a profound medical reality. The true story invites us to lead with compassion rather than immediate judgment when looking at the lives of others. In the end, the truth offers a powerful lesson about the danger of assumptions and the lasting harm of manufactured narratives. We are left to reflect on how a person's painful physical battle was transformed into a global punchline for the sake of entertainment. Moving forward, the legacy of this discovery should encourage a more empathetic approach to the private struggles of every individual. The weight of global fame creates a unique kind of prison where every single blemish becomes a breaking news headline. When the change first began to manifest, the immediate reaction from the public was not empathy, but deep suspicion. This initial wave of skepticism set the tone for the next 3 decades of his life, transforming a medical hardship into a source of endless public debate and mockery. Behind the closed doors of his dressing room, a completely different reality was unfolding away from the prying eyes of reporters. Close associates recalled the frustration and fear that accompanied the early stages of the disorder as it advanced across his arms and chest. He spent hours trying out various concealers and heavy stage makeup just to maintain a consistent appearance for his demanding fans. The struggle to keep up appearances became increasingly difficult as the condition advanced rapidly during the late 80s. What started as small, isolated spots soon merged into vast areas of completely depigmented skin across his entire upper body. Those who worked on his wardrobe had to design specific clothing items to shield these changes from the aggressive zoom lenses of photographers. Medical experts have noted that the sheer stress of performing at such a high level can cause autoimmune conditions to flare up aggressively. The constant travel, sleep deprivation, and intense physical exertion created the absolute perfect storm for his body to turn against itself. Yet, the public remained completely blind to these physical factors, choosing instead to believe elaborate stories about chemical bleaching. It is worth noting that during this entire period of intense scrutiny, very few media outlets bothered to consult actual dermatological experts. Instead, they relied on anonymous sources and speculative commentary from plastic surgeons who had never actually examined the patient. This irresponsible reporting style created a massive gap between public perception and actual medical science that lasted for decades. The turning point in his own public admission came during a rare, highly publicized live television interview viewed by millions around the world. For the first time, he openly shared the name of the condition he was facing, pleading for understanding from a highly skeptical audience. Despite the raw honesty of his testimony, many viewers and media critics dismissed his words as a carefully crafted public relations stunt. This widespread disbelief illustrates a disturbing trend in modern culture where entertainment value completely supersedes basic human truth. People preferred the sensational story of a man transforming himself over the mundane reality of a genetic health condition. This collective choice to ignore his explanation caused immense emotional distress to a man who was already dealing with a devastating diagnosis. To look at his childhood is to understand how deeply rooted his need for control and perfection truly was from the beginning. He was thrust into the professional music industry at an age when most children are just learning to read and write. This early exposure to adult responsibilities and constant judgment left a permanent mark on his psychological well-being. The relentless demands of his father in the music industry taught him that his worth was entirely tied to his outward appearance and performance. When his skin began to change unpredictably, it threatened the very foundation of the flawless image he had worked so hard to build. The fear of losing his audience drove him to extreme lengths to conceal what was happening to his body. The physical reality of vitiligo means that exposure to sunlight becomes highly dangerous due to the total loss of natural UV protection. This scientific fact explains his frequent use of umbrellas, wide-brimmed hats, and heavy sunglasses during daytime public appearances. What the media routinely mocked as eccentric behavior was actually a necessary medical precaution to prevent severe sunburns and skin cancer. The isolation of his later years was directly compounded by this inability to step outside into the natural world without extensive preparation. His home became a fortress designed to protect him from both the prying eyes of the paparazzi and the harsh rays of the sun. This dual layer of confinement turned his daily existence into a lonely struggle against a changing body and an unforgiving public. When we analyze the historical context of the era, we can see how issues of race and identity heavily influenced the media narrative. The transition occurred during a time when society was deeply conflicted about cross-cultural crossover success in the music industry. His changing appearance was weaponized by critics to question his loyalty to his community and his true sense of self. This cultural pressure added an immense layer of emotional pain to an already difficult physical condition that he never asked for. He found himself defending his racial identity while simultaneously battling a disease that was actively erasing his natural skin color. The tragedy lies in the fact that he was judged for a biological process that science now confirms was completely unpreventable. The scientific community has since made massive strides in understanding how vitiligo affects individuals both physically and mentally. Recent studies highlight that patients often experience severe anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal due to the stigma surrounding visible skin differences. Recognizing these factors allows us to view his historical behavior through a much more informed and compassionate lens. When the final medical reports were released to the public after his passing, the findings left no room for further debate or speculation. The documents detailed the precise areas of depigmentation, providing definitive proof that aligned perfectly with his earlier public statements. It was a somber moment of vindication that arrived far too late to offer any comfort to the man who had suffered. The delayed acceptance of this medical truth serves as an indictment of our collective tendency to believe the worst about public figures. It reveals how easily a false narrative can become embedded in public consciousness when it is repeated often enough by mainstream media. The archival evidence stands as a permanent reminder that the truth often requires patience and rigorous documentation to uncover. Reflecting on this chapter of pop culture history should make us pause the next time a sensational headline catches our eye. It challenges us to question the motives of media outlets that profit from the public dismantling of a person's character and appearance. We must learn to separate the art from the private physical struggles of the human beings who create it. The legacy of an artist should not be overshadowed by a medical condition they spent their life trying to manage under extreme circumstances. By understanding the science behind his transformation, we can finally lay the rumors to rest and appreciate the immense resilience required to perform through such adversity. The untold truth ultimately restores a sense of dignity to a story that was stripped of it for far too long. The narrative surrounding this transformation illustrates the immense power that media framing holds over public consciousness. For years, headline writers utilized specific language designed to evoke shock and judgment rather than curiosity or understanding. This systematic approach to storytelling ensured that the public viewed a medical crisis through the lens of a bizarre personal choice. Even within the medical community of that specific time, there was a noticeable lack of public education regarding autoimmune disorders. Visible skin conditions were often misunderstood by the general populace, leading to widespread social stigmas and cruel myths. This lack of broad public awareness created an environment where misinformation could thrive completely unchecked by scientific reality. Close family members have since shared how difficult it was to watch their loved one endure both physical pain and public ridicule simultaneously. They recalled moments when the emotional weight of the constant attacks would leave him completely devastated behind closed doors. Despite this immense internal turmoil, he was expected to step onto global stages and deliver flawless, high-energy performances. The sheer willpower required to maintain a career of that magnitude while dealing with a progressive health condition is staggering. Every music video, every live concert, and every public appearance required meticulous planning to manage the visual progression of the disorder. This hidden labor was completely invisible to the millions of fans cheering in the stadiums worldwide. As the condition spread to his face, the challenge of using makeup to match his original skin tone became completely impractical. The decision was eventually made to utilize treatments that balanced out the remaining pigmented areas to create a uniform appearance. This standard dermatological procedure was completely mischaracterized by the press as a deliberate attempt to alter his identity. It is vital to understand that this medical technique is a recognized treatment option for individuals with severe, widespread cases of the condition. It is designed to help patients achieve a consistent appearance and reduce the extreme psychological distress caused by severe patchiness. Frame by frame, the media twisted a therapeutic medical choice into evidence of psychological instability. The relentless focus on his physical appearance ultimately detracted from the immense humanitarian work he was conducting quietly around the globe. While the headlines focused on his changing face, he was donating millions to hospitals, orphanages, and disaster relief efforts. This stark contrast highlights the distorted priorities of a media landscape obsessed with sensation over substance. The broader lesson of this historical misjudgment forces us to confront our own participation in the culture of celebrity consumption. Every tabloid purchased and every speculative article clicked contributed directly to the financial machinery that profited from his distress. It reveals a collective lack of empathy that often characterizes our relationship with those who achieve extraordinary fame. The documentation surrounding his medical history is now utilized in academic settings to study the impact of media bias on public health perception. It serves as a textbook example of how a highly visible individual can be completely misread by an entire generation due to poor reporting. These studies offer a cautionary tale for future journalists, covering the private lives of public figures. The scientific consensus today stands as an unshakable pillar of truth that honors the reality of his physical experience. Modern dermatologists frequently refer to his case when explaining the severe impact of vitiligo to new patients who fear social isolation. His struggle, though painful, has contributed to a greater global dialogue about skin health and emotional resilience. The journey toward understanding requires us to look past the sensationalized imagery that defined an entire era of entertainment news. It asks us to replace the mockery of the past with a sober appreciation for the facts that have finally come to light. Only by doing so can we truly understand the immense burden carried by one of history's most celebrated artists. The truth does not erase the complexity of his life, but it certainly clarifies one of its most misunderstood chapters. It provides a foundational layer of facts that allows his artistic achievements to take center stage, once again, free from the shadow of false assumptions. The story reminds us that time is ultimately the greatest ally of truth, uncovering reality long after the noise has faded. We are left with a profound responsibility to ensure that future narratives about human suffering are met with skepticism until the facts are fully established. The ultimate takeaway from this revelation is a call for greater decency, patience, and humanity in how we observe the lives of others. By remembering the true story, we honor not just a legacy of music, but the basic human right to be understood. The environment of the music industry in the late 20th century was notoriously cutthroat, leaving little room for personal vulnerability or health crises. Artists were viewed primarily as financial assets, and any sign of physical weakness could jeopardize massive commercial ventures and corporate sponsorships. This economic reality placed an additional layer of immense pressure on him to project an image of absolute invincibility to the world. As a result, the decision to conceal the early symptoms of his condition was driven by a practical need to protect his career and global brand. The industry demanded a flawless product, and he went to extraordinary lengths to deliver exactly what was expected of him. This dedication to his craft, however, came at a massive personal cost that would alter the trajectory of his daily life. The intense physical discomfort of vitiligo is often overlooked in discussions that focus purely on the visual changes. The depigmented skin is highly sensitive to texture, temperature, and environmental irritants, making the wearing of elaborate stage costumes an uncomfortable experience. Every performance became a test of physical endurance, requiring him to push through discomfort for hours at a time under hot stage lights. Despite these immense physical challenges, his artistic output during this period remained incredibly innovative and influential. He channeled his complex emotions into his music and choreography, creating works that resonated deeply with audiences globally. The contrast between his brilliant creative output and his hidden physical suffering speaks volumes about his commitment to his audience. The absolute failure of mainstream media to investigate the scientific reality of his condition reflects a larger systemic issue within the entertainment journalism industry. Tabloid outlets discovered early on that fabricated stories regarding his appearance generated significantly higher revenue than accurate medical reporting. This financial incentive created an echo chamber of misinformation that completely drowned out the voice of reason for decades. Even when authoritative medical professionals attempted to clarify the situation on various news programs, their insights were often edited down or dismissed entirely. The public appetite for sensationalism had been thoroughly conditioned to reject simple, logical explanations in favor of wild, conspiratorial narratives. This media environment made it virtually impossible for the true facts to gain a foothold in public consciousness. The long-term impact of this continuous public assault on his character resulted in a profound sense of distrust between him and the outside world. He withdrew further into his private estate, surrounding himself only with a small circle of trusted friends and family members who understood his true condition. This forced isolation was then weaponized by the media as further proof of his supposed eccentricity. It is a tragic irony that the very society that demanded his constant presence also forced him into a state of total reclusion. The public could not see that his retreat from society was a direct response to the cruelty and misunderstanding he faced every time he stepped outside. This cycle of isolation and judgment defined his later years, creating a tragic disconnect between the artist and his global audience. The eventual release of his medical records provided a definitive closure that many had sought for decades, validating the claims he had made throughout his life. Independent forensic pathologists confirmed that the depigmentation was entirely consistent with advanced vitiligo, leaving no room for alternative interpretations. This hard evidence stands as an enduring monument to the truth, dismantling decades of carefully constructed lies in a single stroke. The validation of his medical journey has sparked a broader conversation within the medical community regarding how visible conditions are portrayed in popular culture. It has led to calls for more responsible reporting and greater sensitivity when discussing the health struggles of individuals in the public eye. This shift in perspective represents a significant step forward in how society handles the delicate balance between public interest and private health. The lessons learned from this historical case are deeply relevant in today's digital age, where misinformation can spread faster than ever before. It serves as a reminder of the collective harm that can be caused when we rush to judgment without verified facts or scientific backing. The story challenges us to cultivate a more critical eye when consuming media that seeks to monetize human vulnerability. Ultimately, the true narrative offers an opportunity to remember the man as he truly was, a dedicated artist navigating an unprecedented level of fame while managing a severe chronic illness. By centering the facts of his condition, we can move past the sensationalism and appreciate the profound human resilience that defined his journey. The untold truth serves as a powerful reminder that compassion should always guide our understanding of the human experience. The psychological impact of experiencing a changing physical identity while being one of the most recognizable people on Earth cannot be overstated, Every single day, he was forced to confront a reality that altered his connection to his own heritage and personal history. The internal struggle to reconcile his internal sense of self with his changing outward appearance was a quiet, enduring torment. His close friends often remarked on how deeply it hurt him to hear accusations that he was intentionally changing his appearance due to self-hatred. He possessed a profound pride in his background and the historic barriers he had broken down for future generations of artists. The weaponization of his medical condition to attack his personal integrity was perhaps the most painful aspect of the entire ordeal. The global community of individuals living with vitiligo has also found a unique point of connection and reflection within this historical narrative. For many patients, seeing a global icon deal with the same stigma and difficulty brought a sense of shared experience, albeit under extreme circumstances. His struggle highlighted the universal need for greater public education and empathy regarding visible differences. The medical treatments available during that specific era were significantly more primitive and unpredictable than the advanced options accessible to patients today. He was essentially navigating a complex autoimmune disorder with limited tools, under the continuous scrutiny of a hypercritical global audience. This contextual reality adds a layer of depth to our understanding of the choices he had to make to manage his health. The enduring power of the false narrative surrounding his skin color demonstrates how easily a myth can become accepted as historical fact when left unchallenged by authority figures. It took his passing and the subsequent legal and medical transparency to finally break the hold of the tabloid rumors on the collective public imagination. This delay highlights the immense uphill battle that individuals face when trying to reclaim their own truth from powerful media entities. The official documentation now stands as an unalterable part of the historical record, ensuring that future generations will have access to the unvarnished facts. It allows biographers and historians to approach his life with a level of accuracy and objectivity that was sorely lacking during his lifetime. This shift in the historical record ensures that his legacy will be defined by his achievements, rather than manufactured controversies. When we look back at the archival footage of his performances, we can now view them with a renewed sense of awe and respect for his professionalism. Knowing the physical and emotional challenges he was managing behind the scenes elevates his artistic contributions to an even higher level of human achievement. It transforms our understanding of his career from a story of effortless stardom to one of profound perseverance. The dialogue surrounding his medical reality also serves to remind us of the ultimate fragility of fame in the human body. No amount of wealth, success, or global adoration can protect an individual from the unpredictable nature of genetic conditions and physical health struggles. This realization brings a sense of humility and shared humanity to our perspective on even the most legendary figures in history. The ethical responsibility of media consumers is a theme that resonates strongly throughout this entire account of public misjudgment. It forces us to look inward and evaluate how our own curiosity can sometimes feed into systems that exploit the private pain of others for profit. The true story asks us to demand higher standards of truth and decency from the media organizations we choose to support. The scientific validation of his condition has ultimately allowed for a more balanced and dignified celebration of his life and career. It has cleared away decades of toxic speculation, allowing his groundbreaking music, dance, and philanthropy to be appreciated without a cloud of suspicion. This restoration of his true narrative is a crucial step in honoring the complete reality of his journey. The legacy of this discovery extends into the future, offering a blueprint for how society can learn from its past mistakes and treat public figures with greater respect. It emphasizes that every person, regardless of their level of celebrity, deserves the right to privacy and accurate representation when dealing with health challenges. The Untold Truth stands as a testament to the enduring power of facts over sensationalism. In closing, the revelation of the scientific truth behind his transformation provides a sense of justice that was denied to him during his lifetime. It invites us all to reflect on how we view difference, health, and humanity in an increasingly connected and judgmental world. By embracing the verified reality of his struggle, we move closer to a culture defined by empathy, understanding, and respect for individual truth.